Welcome to Coffee with the Sarlos. We are your hosts of the show, Karen and Kelly Sarlo. Whether you're struggling with grief or you just need answers, we connect you with spirit to find relief, clarity, and direction in life. We can help you move forward.
Hi, Kelly.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm ready for coffee and a story, Karen.
Oh, good. And I'm sure you are ready to jump 3 steps ahead.
Yes.
Good. I'm sure that's what the listeners are here for.
I hope so.
As much as they are here for the story.
Who knows? Maybe they're just like, I tolerate Kelly. It's fine.
So this client's name, a made-up name, of course, is Dina. And she, I can see her over Zoom. So she appears to me to be maybe in her 40s. And she asks me if I can connect to her mom. And her mom comes in right away and says, I want to start off by saying that I passed away when Dina was 11 years old. And I said, Dina, I said, your mom's right off the hop is telling me that you lost her when you were like a kid. She says around the age of 11. And she said, yes, I did. And I said, okay, I said, I'm going to download more information from your mom and then I'll give you a whole bunch of information. Thanks for the first validation. That's fantastic. Because I always like to start off sessions with facts first and then the other types of messages coming in. And her mom says to me, oh my, Karen, I was sick for years of her life. She can barely remember when I wasn't sick. And I said, well, what kind of sickness? Can you be specific? And she goes, I'm going to be very specific because at the time when she was a child, she just saw me as sick. Just one word, just sick. She did not realize that I had so many problems. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, Karen, she said, I had things like what you would now call fibromyalgia. And she says, but then I also got cancer. And she says, I had multiple problems. I had an injury in a shoulder. It didn't heal properly. She says, I had all kinds of issues. And she said, sometimes I was in hospital. She says, and then I also developed some mental health issues, depression, anxiety. She says, so I had issues around my mental health, though I was a very loving, very kind person, and I really loved my family. She said I struggled with other issues compounding the physical illnesses. So there were times where I was gone in a hospital, eventually was in hospital for long periods of time. It's not just to recuperate from a surgery or going for a treatment. She says, so my daughter has all of these ideas, but only found out about the complications and how sick I really was and all the different issues as an adult. So she didn't know that as a child. And even more recently, she's found out about more things that had been going on with me. And that's part of the reason why she's sitting here today. She's hoping that you're actually going to confirm that the new medical information she got from different family members is all correct. And she's saying it's all very correct. And she goes, it's just that at home, my husband and my mother-in-law, who moved in to take care of the kids and to help my husband, and sometimes me when I was home, they just didn't break it all down and say she's, going through this at this period.
They shouldn't.
Yeah.
Age appropriately, right. That would not have been something that you share.
Right.
And I'm sure child psychologists would say, correct. You can share so much, but there's only so much a child's brain can process. And that's not insulting intelligence. That's saying she might have been a very smart person who can understand the what. Developmentally, though, the emotional processing that she would have to do and the burden that she would have to bear, the weight that she would feel is not an age-appropriate thing. Right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes at different stages, it's enough to say she's sick. Mm-hmm. It's enough to say she can't care for you.
Mm-hmm. And her mom points out, and I'm going to put it in right now because you're pointing it out right now, that her dad and Dina's dad and grandmother, which is his mom, do not parentify her. They'd
Mm-hmm.
allow her, you're going to hear such beautiful things about this family, but they allow her and her siblings to be age appropriate.
Yeah. They are still allowed to be kids, even though this child is dealing with a very sick, serious adult situation.
And the dad and the grandmother very much are on the same page in the way they parent
Cool.
and in the way that they communicate. They're an amazing team.
Yeah. So for anyone who's going, okay, wait, what's parentifying?
Oh,
Because you
yes.
said they do not parentify her. That's a beautiful thing. Parentifying a child means that you take a kid, age inappropriately, and make them responsible for things that adults should be responsible for. So parentifying from the father's perspective might have been partner me as though you are my wife, right? Take on loads or tasks or responsibilities as though you are my equal. Now, you can respectfully treat someone communicationally as your equal, but not make them your task or responsibility equal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So her mom comes through and talks a lot about her childhood and the type of parenting she gets from her dad and from her grandmother. And she cannot say enough about her mother-in-law.
Nice.
She cannot. She is just absolutely in love with this woman. And one of the things that she says to her daughter is how her dad likes to teach her to be logical, to be analytical, to think through in consequences of things. And he loves negotiation. Yeah, and so does the grandmother. So they purposely set up games for negotiation. They purposely walk her through. And if she's having a temper tantrum, they sit her down and say, okay, now if we ask you questions and you think through this, just answer the questions. They walk her through the temper tantrum so that she actually comes to the logic. She actually starts thinking ahead. Well, I really, really want to go out and stay out late tonight or whatever it was. But her grandmother and her dad would say things like, okay, if we let you stay up 2 hours late, what do you have first thing tomorrow morning? What time do you have to get up? How do you think you will feel if you have to get up at that time and you have 2 hours less of sleep? And sometimes she's like, I don't care. And they will say, well, if you go to that class or you go to that sporting event or you go hang out with that friend or you go have breakfast with that person and they have prepared a nice breakfast for you and you are overtired, how do you think they're going to feel if you don't eat breakfast? And they have been preparing that for you. So they teach her empathy. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, critical thinking. I will say I've been in this situation lots where I stay up too late. And recording this is actually a great example where I will say to myself in negotiation, I can afford to be tired. I can afford to wake up, make a coffee, sit and listen to Karen's story, add a little bit of my 2 cents and be okay. Right? So it's learning about how to prioritize. I would not show up that way for book club. Right. So it teaches you how to weight different things. And that doesn't mean you don't necessarily take something seriously. It means I don't need the same level of energy or output in a particular thing to engage well.
Yes. And that's, I just love what you've done.
I highly value these recordings. I highly value, this is actually some of the most amount of quality time I get to spend with you these days with, 8 jobs between the two of us. But that doesn't mean I need to be 100% on when I show up, right? The same way I'll say that you don't when you show up to book club recordings. So there's still high value, but you're assessing your time, your energy, your desire, etc.
And they teach her delayed gratification. They teach her how important it is that, okay, maybe you can't do this evening, but you're really going to have fun at this event tomorrow morning. So you still might be able to go to this event tonight, and instead of staying out later, maybe, 8 o'clock at her age, and we're asking you to come home at 7 o'clock, so you're missing an hour at that event. Can you still go and have fun, miss that last hour that you wanted, be able to come home and not be rushed, not be stressed, not trying to fall asleep, so that you can get up and still enjoy the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the guys are explaining this, and her mom's explaining all of this, describing what was going on, the teachings that were happening, the things that she was faced with when she was in hospital, when she was in a bedroom, asleep, when she was on a couch in pain and couldn't participate, or was trying to the best of her ability, but it wasn't really looking like mom was fully present. So she's showing this grown daughter of hers, I was there and I'm trying to let you know I'm here now and I know what you were going through. Then her mom talks about values. She talks about the fact that her mother-in-law and her husband and her, while she was alive, were very big on teaching the girls values by living them, not by preaching them. And very much by breaking them down into pieces that were very manageable, age appropriately for, oh, by the way, it's a group of girls. That was the fact that came through that just popped into my mind. She has sisters. So I was just going to throw out that word, her and her sisters, but I didn't explain that. So I'll just put that in. So her mother-in-law and dad raise all of the girls in the family to talk about their values, to be able to understand what another person values. So if one of the girls values their room very clean, neat, and organized, and another one of them that places no value on that, maybe cleans it once a week instead of liking it each day, there's respect given that all of the girls can go into, say the sister that doesn't care about her room being neat and organized. Okay, we can go in there and play and leave our toys. Maybe we leave a mess. She doesn't seem to care. That's not a big priority. But on Saturday when it's cleanup time, you might want to pop in and say, I made some of this mess. You might want to pop in and say, hey, my room is clean, and I know right now you're cleaning yours, but when you came into my room and we were playing, you know I like my room clean, so you put everything away when you left. But now it's cleaning day for you, so I thought I'd come in and see, is there anything I can do to help you? Do you want me to pick up all the laundry and put a load on? Or whatever it was, age appropriately. So they go through life with a tremendous amount of consideration of the other. And it is taught at a very young age to consider the other, especially when you don't have the very same common way that you value something, which I thought was the cleaning of the room. I thought was such a beautiful example that her mom used, because it's just an everyday thing that she's showing, hey, even though, I was sick a lot and not even in the house sometimes, I still know how you guys were being raised and your behaviors and the values and the morals that you guys were being taught and how you were practicing them. And that in doing those things, you learned to love each other. You learned what love is. You learned that love is respect. It's knowing the other person. It's being able to say, I value your different values than mine. And that doesn't negate them because they're not the same as mine, or mine are more important. There is room for both. There's room for both in relationships. Oh, that's just gorgeous, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So then mom stopped and she said, okay. She says, I want to talk about as she grew up. And she says, I want to jump quite a bit now because that was that, age and a little bit older. And she says, I want to talk about the fact that she got married. And she says, and she has her own children, but she doesn't have all girls. She has a daughter and some boys. And I want her to know that I know that I have grandchildren. She says, even though I've never been around for it, I want her to know that I do know this. I want her to know that she's been married to one man. Well, I mean, her daughter knows that she's been married to one man. I didn't word that right. That her mama is aware that she's married to one man. She's had one marriage. That she's, what else was it? That she's expecting her first grandchild. Expecting. She was so happy to hear that, Kelly. Oh my goodness, the emotional response that came through her, and just the tears at that time. But I'm going to say like a mixture of tears, I would imagine. Like the happiness of knowing that your mom knows that, but that the sadness, like, wow, I'm glad that she does. This is pretty wonderful, but I wish you were here too. So it's that whole combination of more than one feeling or one thought for why you're crying, can be all mixed up within us at the same time, right? And then her mom talked about some of her hobbies and said, okay, this daughter, Dina, has never been athletic, but she's trying now. She's not trying to be athletic in that she's trying to be competitive. She's just trying to be more athletic in that she's venturing out and putting on some snowshoes. She's venturing out and she's trying cross-country skiing.
Okay, we're going to call that active, not athletic.
Oh,
Athletes will be like, no. No, there are different substandards.
and the athletes out there will go, clearly Karen is not an athlete.
You would be correct. Karen is active.
Oh my God, true. So anyway, so she talked about the fact that she was more crafty and that she loved spending her time indoors in craft rooms creating things, and that she actually turned that into a career.
Cool.
Yeah. And into like a business where she makes her own stuff. And I don't mean like online, but that where she made her own stuff and she sold it, like that she had her own store. And that just recently, she's behind the times because this is 2024, but just recently, she's looking at putting a lot of her products online. And I mean that in the sense of her art. I don't just mean like taking a picture and saying I'm selling this, but like actually taking her art and uploading it.
An e-commerce store. Karen is also behind the times, but she's trying.
I'm also trying to get my art on an e-commerce store soon. Oh my goodness. So mom is showing Dina that I know what's going on, not just what happened, 30 years ago, but I know what's been going on in the interim of those 30 years and how you've had these babies and this marriage and, you've got your art and all of this stuff. And right up to now, the decisions that you're trying to make, the things that you're trying to do with your life. And Dina just sat there and went, Karen, this is incredible. She says, my mom and you and the spirit guides have literally taken me through my whole life, like right from being a young kid, right to my present, to show me that my mom has died, yes, but she still knows, she's still involved. And I said, yes, those are exactly what the messages she's trying to give you. That's exactly what she's trying to prove to you.
I don't know what point you're going to try and make in this podcast, and I look forward to whatever it might be. But my head goes to why love languages are so important to engage in, because I sit here and I think I'm thrilled for Dina. Like, this is wonderful, right? Mm-hmm. She gets to hear that her mom hasn't missed a beat. She has witnessed everything. So then it gets me thinking, like, okay, if every single human being can know and accept or understand the idea that all souls witness our lives and that can fill us up on some level, but we still experience grief and wish they were here. What is it about them being here that is so deeply important to us, and why aren't we doing more of that? Why aren't we prioritizing that? Why aren't we coming outside of our own, fear of rejection or, no, I'll leave it there, fear of rejection, to say, I want more quality time with you, or to say touch is so important to me? Because I think, like, I know you'll witness my life for the rest of my life, whether you're here or not. So what is it? Why would I be upset if you were gone physically? Well, because I can't bear the idea that I can't hug you. Hugging you is so important to me, right? Or quality time. It's like, I want to be able to look over and physically see you present. Okay, so then why aren't we making more time, scheduling more time, non-negotiable time together, right? Like, because everything gets witnessed. So what is the missing piece that matters the most to you, where you end up feeling like you have regrets, or that you at an 11-year-old age missed out?
Yeah. Well, I think this really comes out, Kelly, in the next little part of the session where her mom talks about her being an active mom and wanting to be this beautiful grandma, to be present at her children's, and I'm going to say in-laws, pardon me, I was trying to find my words there. And when she has grandchildren, like how much she wants to be present for the activities, where she wants to be there to see things, to be able to support, to be able to go to events. Like not necessarily that, you might just be watching an event. Doesn't matter. My kid's going to do whatever they're going to do, but I need for them to see that I'm here.
That it mattered enough that I made or carved out time to be
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just going to sit here behind the glass or on the other side of the bleachers or, like while you're doing your crafts or whatever it is. She says, like how important it is for her to figure out how to acknowledge who they are. And so if somebody comes along and says, well, I don't have sporting events for you to attend, then she has to sit there and go, okay, so I did that a lot for, this child because they were very athletic. So I went to all of these sporting events and I did that. That's what was important to them. But my other child is more artsy like me. So what do I do with them? Do I actually make art with them? Do I,
Ask them to set up an e-commerce store for me.
yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do we talk about art? Do we go to Michael's together or art stores? Do we make little day trips to go, to a different little community to find an art class to go to together? Like, this is something that has really formed her life and her relationships. And it's all because her mom passed when she was so small and she missed those opportunities through her teen years and adult years. So she makes sure that this is front and center in her life, including with her partner, including with her friends. What is important to you?
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and you're showcasing the emotional intelligence that Dina has developed because she could have, in a very unhealthy, insecure attachment, which she would have come by honestly, by the way, having lost a mother at such a young age.
Yeah.
She could have projected all of her needs onto all of her own kids and been like, well, I'm at every event because my mom wasn't at any.
Right.
I didn't have this luxury, so I'm here. She could have been a martyr, right? She could have been someone who forced herself physically on her kids to be everywhere they were because of her own fears or disappointments. But instead, because she was raised with this beautiful emotional intelligence and critical thinking from two other secure attachments, her grandmother and her father, she can consider another. She's not projecting her missed needs. She's asking them and observing what are theirs and how can I lovingly provide that, not assume they have the same as me.
Okay, you did it perfectly. So this is this moment in the show where I get to point out how perfectly you did that.
Oh, thanks.
For everybody listening. And then I get to say how beautifully then that the spirit guides interject into Dina's session to say, Mom, can you just take a side for a second? We want to talk about the attachment styles and talk about what you just did. We want to explain what she's learned from, as you said, from her grandmother and her dad. She didn't know it was called an attachment style. She didn't know what they were.
Okay.
She asked what they were and for resources on them, which is great. That was given to her. And then she was told how she was creating that with her own partner and how she picked a partner that had the secure attachment style because it was all of the very things that she was raised in. And that when she dated other guys and it just didn't jive, she didn't quite know why it didn't jive with them. But once she started to understand the attachment style a tiny bit, even in that session, she was like, oh, that explains why I walked away from this person. Oh, that explains why I dumped this group. Or that explains why I didn't want to go into a friendship with this person for any longer. So she really enjoyed listening to the attachment styles. And then her mom said something I thought was absolutely beautiful. She said, your father and your grandmother lived with integrity. And as a result, you and all of your siblings and all of the partners live in integrity. And she says, each of you made this as a complete value goal in your own personal lives and held that as a bar for other people. And if other people came along and they just couldn't rise to that bar, you weren't mean. You guys were all just like, that's okay. And you just sort of went off and you just like, oh, I broke my, this friend, I'm not hanging around anymore. And your dad might question you about it. But deep down, he was looking to see what it was that you were valuing, what it was that you were missing. And that person couldn't live up to. And he was purposely trying to ask those questions so that you would figure out on your own what it was you were valuing and what it was you were doing and seeking. And that when somebody else lacked it, that you didn't judge them because they lacked it. You simply moved on.
Dina, I don't know if you're a listener, but if you are, we did a recent podcast on seeking applications for a new family.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just like to say that I would like to put in an application for your family.
Oh my God.
Because
that's true.
Integrity is my number one value. I'm going to sell myself here. And I just feel like I would be a really good fit in your beautiful little family of love.
Yeah. And you know what, Kelly? The dad, you're just triggering something that was in my notes for this. The dad makes it really important to everybody in the family to understand that when you have integrity, not everybody else likes it.
Yeah.
That when you stand up in your integrity, they can take your words and twist them. They can take your text messages and cut little things out and then post and say you said something you didn't say. But that if you know where your own integrity is, that's where you sit at the end of every day. And that people are going to misconstrue and they're going to do what they got to do. But you have to be able to live with yourself. And that's a massive thing that was super important to him. Mm-hmm. That she gets and that she is living in her own life and then continues to have with her partner and their children, and that they're very much looking forward to now being able to teach all of this to this next little generation that's coming.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm happy that you got to sit with that energy for an hour.
Oh my God. Especially in this day and age. Mm-hmm. Yes. I really enjoyed that. It gave me a lot of hope. To know that there are families, people, individuals. I don't want to just say families because I know there are single people listening that have walked away from family members and are feeling very alone in their integrity and wondering, oh my God, integrity can come at a high cost sometimes.
But family can be you and your best friend.
Yes.
Right? So we're not excluding single people. We're probably actually saying, hello, it's probably you.
Right.
You and a best friend, or you and a sister that you kept, but the rest of you walked away, right? Yeah. Or the rest, you walked away from the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good, Kelly. I'm glad that you're pointing all those things out about the different ways that families look. We try to do that often on this podcast.
And sometimes it's you and your dog.
Yes.
Or cat. I do exclude cat people, and I am sorry. Taylor Swift is a cat person, and I should know better. Anyway, thank you for this show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think, you said it gave you hope, and I think it will give listeners hope as well. Thank you for listening to Coffee with the Sarlos. If you enjoyed the show today, please be sure to subscribe on your podcast platform and leave a review. New shows will air every other Saturday.